Under the cold white light of the ICU at Atlanta Memorial Hospital, the air was thick and sharp like a blade pressed against the throat. The steady beeping of machines filled the silence, but somewhere along the endless hallway, a quiet scent of death crept in, unnoticed by everyone except one being who never lied. Titan, a Belgian Malinois canine with eyes that burned like infernal flames. Titan pressed his nose against the glass window, the fur on his neck bristling. A low, guttural growl rumbled from his throat, echoing through the eerily still air. Beyond the glass, his handler, Officer Kaelith Vorne, lay motionless among a forest of 4 lines and blinking monitors, her face pale as if she'd been dragged from the bottom of a river. Just 12 hours ago, they had been an unstoppable duo, scouring Atlanta International Airport in pursuit of a ghost-like smuggler through a labyrinth of terminals and security gates. But now Kaelith was fighting for her life, and Titan, who had never known fear, sensed a new kind of threat closer than ever before. All eyes were on Dr. Warwick, a tall, lanky man in pale scrubs, rubber-gloved hands gliding calmly over syringes and 4 bags with an unsettling serenity. He had just entered Kaelith's room, mumbling beneath his mask in a steady rhythm, like a priest reciting last rites. But Titan wasn't listening to the words. He smelled something. A sharp, metallic tang of chemicals, a scent he had been trained to detect among thousands of packages at the airport. The scent of crime. Titan's growl deepened, rising into furious barking. His claws scraped against the glossy floor as Officer Jackson Creed, gripping the leash, flinched and turned. "Easy, Titan," Jackson whispered, his voice shaky, hand tightening on the leather strap as if trying to stifle a rising dread. But Titan didn't stop. His ears flattened, body taut like a drawn bow, eyes locked onto every movement Warwick made. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Just hours ago at Terminal C, Titan had caught that same scent for the first time, on a man in a hazmat suit who sprinted through the crowd, clutching a small suitcase. Kaelith, instincts as sharp as Titan's, had signaled him to give chase. Together, they tore through suffocating corridors, the pounding of boots mixing with gasping breaths. Then, darkness exploded. A small blast from the suitcase. Gunshots. Kaelith fell, blood spreading across the floor, and Titan barely managed to clamp his jaws on the man's sleeve before he vanished into the smoke. Now, in the ICU, Titan recognized that same chemical scent. It wasn't just drugs, it was something far worse. And the one carrying it stood just feet away from Kaelith. Dr. Warwick turned, his eyes flickering with panic as he met Titan's blazing gaze through the glass. He quickly adjusted one of Kaelith's IVs, fingers trembling ever so slightly before returning to their eerie calm. Titan barked furiously, throwing his weight against the glass, making Jackson stumble. "What's wrong with him?" came a voice from the nearby nurse station. It was Lyrian Voss, a sharp-eyed young intern who had worked with therapy dogs before, and knew that Titan wasn't panicking. He was warning. "He only does that with him," Jackson replied, his voice cracking as he looked into the room. Kaelith's heart rate was suddenly plummeting, monitors blaring like death bells. Titan lunged for the door, snapping the leash from Jackson's grip, his claws screeching across the floor like a battle cry. Lyrian shouted, "Stop him." But Titan had already acted. 5 years of training. Countless chases. All led to this moment. Warwick bolted toward the service elevator, his lab coat flaring as it revealed a faint tattoo on his neck, the same symbol Titan had seen on the smuggler's arm at the airport. The elevator doors began to close, but Titan was faster than the dark. He lunged through the gap, jaws locking onto Warwick's arm. Blood sprayed against the metal walls. The man's scream echoed inside the narrow shaft. Jackson and Lyrian arrived just in time to see the elevator doors shut, leaving only the sound of Titan's growl and bones breaking behind. The man who had attacked Kaelith once at the airport wouldn't get a second chance. When the elevator opened on the lower floor, hospital security swarmed in, surrounding Warwick, now fully exposed as Zane Carver, a janitor from another hospital. Titan stood guard, bloodied fur bristling, eyes blazing, his body blocking the man's only exit. "He's not playing," one guard whispered, hands shaking as he looked at Carver's shredded arm. Lyrian rushed in, demanding an ID check on the spot. The horrific truth unraveled. Zane Carver had been alone in Kaelith's room for nearly an hour, with full access to her and medical charts. Titan had stopped a murder attempt, but was it in time? Kaelith's heart still beat faintly behind the glass, weaker with every second. The ICU room at Atlanta Memorial Hospital was bathed in a pale, ghostly light, the kind that carved deep shadows into the face of Kaelith Vorne, once a fierce warrior, now lying motionless like a statue abandoned by time. The steady beeping of machines echoed through the space, but between those electronic pulses hung a deadly silence, as if death itself lurked somewhere in the shadows. Titan, the Belgian Malinois with eyes like molten gold from the pits of purgatory, sat silently by the observation window, nose twitching, ears perked like radars tuned to pick up the frequencies of death. Zane Carver, the man who had impersonated Dr. Warwick, was now in custody, his shredded arm cuffed tight in a holding cell deep beneath the hospital. But Titan wasn't relaxing. Deep within his instincts, honed over 5 years of tracking criminals, he knew the danger wasn't over. The same sharp chemical stench from the airport, the one that had brought him and Kaelith to the brink of life and death, still lingered in the air, swirling like a curse that had yet to be lifted. Officer Jackson Creed, hands still trembling from the elevator chase, knelt beside Titan, running his fingers through the sleek black fur. "You did good, warrior," he whispered, though his voice betrayed the unease gnawing at him. Through the glass, he watched in turn Dr. Lyrian Voss scanning Kaelith's medical chart, her brow furrowed as if she had just uncovered something horrific. "Something's not right," Lyrian said, her voice strained as she flipped through the notes. "These meds, no one would prescribe them this way. Someone deliberately scrambled her system." Titan let out a low whine, deep and guttural, as if he understood every word. His eyes locked onto the corner of the room, where a small refrigerator hummed softly, unassuming. Jackson stood up, gripping Titan's leash tighter. "What is it, Titan? Show me." Titan moved without hesitation, nose to the ground, silent and focused like a ghost stalking prey. He stopped in front of the refrigerator and sat, a clear K9 signal, target found. Lyrian and Jackson exchanged tense glances. "Call maintenance. Now," Lyrian snapped, her voice cold as steel. A flustered technician arrived moments later, hands trembling as he removed the lower panel. The flashlight beam swept across the shadows and found it, a small black-wrapped package duct-taped to the compressor. Inside were 3 vials of clear, unmarked liquid, each etched with a small symbol on the glass, an inverted triangle crossed by 2 horizontal lines. The same symbol from Zane Carver's tattoo. The same one Titan had seen on the smuggler's arm at the airport. "Jesus," Jackson muttered, yanking out his phone in a blur. "This isn't just drugs. This is something way bigger." Lyrian grabbed a pair of gloves and carefully lifted one vial under the overhead light. "If I'm right, this isn't poison, it's a bioweapon. An experimental agent hidden within legally shipped medical supplies." Titan growled, baring his teeth, ready to tear apart anyone who dared approach Kaelith again. Jackson turned to Lyrian, voice raw with disbelief and fear. "You're saying they tracked her here? Knew exactly what room she'd be in just to finish the job?" Lyrian nodded slowly, her expression dark. "They didn't just want her dead, Jackson. They wanted her silenced. Kaelith found something they never wanted anyone to know." The question hung in the air like toxic smoke. What had Kaelith discovered at Atlanta International Airport? Titan remembered, the night they stayed late, Kaelith huddled under the warm glow of her desk lamp, flipping through dusty old files from a 5-year-old smuggling case. Titan had dozed at her feet, but he remembered her heart rate spiking, the scent of adrenaline rising from her skin as she read something deadly. She'd made 3 calls that night. The first to her superior, no answer. The second to an unlisted number, her hands shook as she dialed. The third never connected. That's when they noticed the black SUV tailing them home. That was the beginning of the nightmare, and now it had followed them into the hospital. Suddenly Titan leapt to his feet, ears pricked, nose twitching wildly. A new scent, bitter, caustic, seeped into the room from the ceiling vents. "Everybody out. Now!" Jackson shouted. But it was too late. A faint hiss filled the room, followed by wisps of white smoke curling out from the vents, death, drifting in on a breath of air. Lyrian rushed to the control panel, slamming her hand against the emergency override, but the screen was dead. The monitors tracking Kaelith's vitals shrieked in alarm, her heartbeat fading like a candle in the wind. Titan didn't wait. He bolted into the hallway, jaws clamping down on the wall-mounted fire alarm, yanking it hard. The sirens blared instantly, mixing with the hiss of reversed airflow as emergency ventilation kicked in. Fire doors slammed shut, sealing the corridor in chaos. In the panic of evacuation, no one noticed the figures in black quietly withdrawing from the parking lot, unmarked vans disappearing into the night. But Titan saw them, his golden eyes cutting through the dark, burning their features into memory. Now, in a secure wing of Atlanta General Hospital far from the chaos, Kaelith finally opened her eyes. Weak, struggling to breathe, but alive. Titan rested his head on the edge of her bed, his tail thumping softly against the floor, a rare sign of relief. "Hey, warrior," Kaelith whispered, her trembling fingers brushing his nose. Jackson stepped into the room, eyes shining with a new light. "Thanks to Titan, we've got enough to blow this whole network wide open. The real FBI is involved now, not the fakes from this morning." But Titan didn't fully relax. One ear stayed perked. One eye remained open. The game wasn't over. The people behind this had reach, power beyond comprehension, and Kaelith was still a threat to them. Somewhere in the depths of Atlanta's night, a phone rang inside a lavish office. A voice hissed with fury on the other end. How is she still alive? They had failed with guns. Failed with poison. But Titan knew they wouldn't stop. And he wouldn't give them a third chance. Tonight he stood guard, nose tuned to every whisper of air, ready for the next fight. Because Kaelith wasn't just his handler. She was his soul. And he would give his life to keep hers burning. Darkness cloaked Atlanta like a velvet shroud, torn apart only by the wails of ambulance sirens and the strobe flashes of police cruisers. 3 days after the toxic gas attack at Atlanta Memorial, Kaelith Vorne had been transferred to a sealed-off room at Atlanta General Hospital, where security was so tight not even a fly could slip through. She lay in bed, her sharp gaze gradually returning, though her body still trembled with weakness after the prolonged coma. Beside her, Titan, a Belgian Malinois with fur as black as the night, lay motionless, his head resting at the edge of the bed, golden eyes locked on the doorway. Thunder rolled outside the window, lightning slashing across the sky in furious bursts, momentarily illuminating the tension carved into the faces of Jackson Creed and Dr. Lyrian Voss, who hadn't left Kaelith's side. "They're coming," Kaelith whispered. Her voice was hoarse but laced with unwavering resolve. She refused to turn on the lights, letting her eyes adjust to the darkness, a skill she and Titan had honed through countless nights of hunting predators in the shadows. "I can feel them." Titan growled lowly, ears perked, nose twitching non-stop. Jackson placed a hand on his sidearm, his eyes scanning the hallway through the narrow window slit. "Security's doubled. The FBI is actually in the lobby. They're not getting in." But the moment those words left his mouth, a cascade of chaos began. First, the backup generator groaned and died, the hum of electricity suffocated into silence. Then a quiet click echoed from the electronic lock on the security door, it disengaged like a ghost's breath. Finally, the nurse station monitors flickered black, dragging the surveillance system down with them. Darkness was no longer an ally. It had become the enemy. "Good evening." The voice was deep and cold, like wind through a graveyard. Chief Thane Dre stepped through the doorway, his towering frame filling the entrance. The badge on his chest caught the dim hallway light, but his eyes, once a beacon of trust during Kaelith's 5 years of service, were now dark, serpentine. 2 men in tactical gear stood behind him, weapons drawn, blocking any chance of escape. "Stay down, Vorne," Thane said, his hand moving slowly to his holstered pistol. "It'll be easier for all of us." Titan rose, growling like thunder but didn't move, waiting for Kaelith's command. Discipline she'd forged into him through fire and blood. "How long have you been selling us out, Thane?" Kaelith asked, her hand inching beneath the blanket toward the nurse call button. Her voice was sharp despite the pain it cost to speak. Thane chuckled dryly like bone cracking. You always ask too many questions, Vorne. About those airport shipments. The unlogged flights. You thought it was just drugs? You sneered. It was bigger than that. Bioweapons. Hidden in medical cargo. Tested right here on U.S. soil. His grin widened, revealing perfect, soulless teeth. You and your mutt sniffed out what you shouldn't have. Titan caught Kaelith's signal, a subtle flick of her fingers that only he understood. 5 years of bond had made them a perfect machine. The moment Thane raised his gun, Kaelith yanked the curtain, plunging the room into pitch black. Titan struck like a shadow's blade, no hesitation, no bark, seizing Thane's sleeve and dragging him to the floor. The gunshot rang out wildly, shattering the window into 1,000 glittering shards. Jackson tackled one of the armed men, grappling in the dark. Lyrian lunged for the emergency lockdown panel, slamming her palm on the override button. Kaelith rolled from the bed, pain flaring through her injured side. She seized a metal tray, makeshift weapon in hand. Chaos erupted. Titan didn't go for the kill, he was smarter than that. He tripped Thane, slamming his head against a metal cart with a satisfying crack. But the two armed men weren't amateurs. One wrapped a thick, armored arm around Titan's neck, tightening. The other drew a combat knife, aiming for the dog's back. Titan, F. Kaelith screamed. It was a command born from the illegal dogfighting pits Titan had once escaped. Titan went limp for a moment, legs trembling, faking weakness. The man eased his grip. That was his last mistake. Titan exploded upward, using the man's own arm as leverage, springing forward and slamming into Thane again, jaws clamped tight on his shoulder, not breaking skin but pinning him down with immovable force. Thane's backup pistol skittered across the floor, landing at Kaelith's feet. She picked it up, raised it and shouted, "Nobody move." Floodlights blazed through the hallway as the FBI ATF task force stormed in, led by Special Agent Elias Kane, who had been watching from afar, waiting for the right moment. Thane was cuffed, his face contorted in fury and pain. "You have no idea what you've done," he spat. "There are people above me. Above all of us. They won't let this see the light." Kaelith stroked Titan's ear, eyes steely. "Let them come. I've got something they've never faced before." Titan growled in agreement. 2 weeks later, at the federal hearing, Kaelith stood before the grand jury, her voice steady though her body still bore the scars of battle. Titan sat beside her, silent, noble, a warrior awaiting orders. She told it all. The strange scent at the airport, the explosion at Terminal C, the bioweapons network that spanned 3 continents. Thane's arrest triggered a domino effect. Dozens of officials and military contractors were exposed. FBI Special Agent Catherine Walsh confirmed. "Thanks to Vorne and Titan, we stopped a global catastrophe." Back at Atlanta Memorial, Lyrian Voss launched a new K9 security initiative, with Kaelith and Titan as advisors, transforming hospitals and airports into fortresses. That night, on the hospital rooftop, Kaelith sat beside Titan, gazing down at the city's glowing skyline. "You know, warrior," she murmured, stroking his ears, "heroes don't always need medals. Sometimes they just need to believe in themselves." Titan tilted his head, eyes gleaming, ready for whatever came next. Because they would come, those in the shadows with new plans and deadlier weapons. But Kaelith and Titan weren't just a team, they were a living vow, a friendship forged in fire, unbreakable. Life teaches us that trust and resolve can outshine any darkness. Like Kaelith and Titan, sometimes you have to rely on instinct, stand firm through betrayal, and fight for what's right, no matter how powerful the enemy. True friendship isn't just about walking together. It's the strength to stand against the world. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more emotional high-stakes stories. Kaelith and Titan's journey is far from over, and we'd love for you to walk it with them.